Hi. Well, let's talk about something that relates to the article I've just written. And this one is called When Doing Nothing Feels Irresponsible. So let's talk about the moment nobody warns you about. Not the breakdown, not the insight, not the grand philosophical realization that free will is illusion. No. What I want to talk about is the moment after you stop, when you don't intervene, when you don't fix things, when you don't send a message, when you don't clarify, rescue, smooth, or manage something. And when suddenly your body loses its mind, not metaphorically, but literally. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your attention snaps to imaginary fires that need putting out immediately. There's a buzzing urgency that says, this is irresponsible. And that sentence feels very serious, very adult, very moral. It feels like conscience. It isn't. It's withdrawal. Why should you be responsible? And here's the first thing most people get wrong. Panic doesn't arrive because danger has appeared. Panic often arrives because action has been stopped. For years, decades even, your nervous system has learned something very simple. Understanding leads to action, leads to relief, not resolution, but relief. You step in, the anxiety drops. You fix the situation and the tension eases. You intervene and your body goes, ah, thank God, we're useful again. So, when you don't act, your system goes into protest. Not because something bad is happening, but because something familiar isn't. Even the worst situations can be familiar, so can be more comforting than any resolution or inaction. It's not morality or anything like that. It's conditioning, plain and simple conditioning. Now, watch what the mind does next. And this is the clever bit. The panic arrives first. This is new. This is a different situation. I'm not used to this. Help. Then the explanation shows up late to the party, holding a clipboard that says, if I don't do something, I'm being negligent. Somebody has to take responsibility. I can't just sit back. These thoughts feel obvious, which is how you know they're post hoc. Responsibility is not what caused the panic. Responsibility is what the panic calls itself to sound respectable. As Martin Butler puts it, and this is one of his most useful lines, because really it aligns with coitus interruptus. He says that responsibility is fear that's learned to speak politely. And that's all that's happening here. Now here's where it starts to get slightly funny, if you can bear to look. Notice how small the re-entry usually is. You don't rush in heroically. You just check, just clarify. Just say one thing. And the second you do, your body calms down. The panic evaporates, the urgency dissolves. You feel normal again. You've regulated yourself. Well done, congratulations. You've just reinforced the loop. Because your nervous system doesn't care whether you helped. It cares that you moved. The system does not reward truth, it rewards motion. That's why people keep intervening, even when intervention keeps making things worse. Action feels like competence. Inaction feels like danger. Now zoom out. This isn't just happening inside of you. When you stop intervening, other people feel it too. They might not say it directly, but the pressure starts to build. You seem distant. You seem checked out. You're not being yourself. Translation is, You're not regulating us anymore. Help. We're not used to regulating ourselves. You do everything for us. In the 2020s, we've watched this play out publicly on steroids. No end of dramas occur like this. Public figures who don't comment are condemned. Leaders who wait are called weak. Silence is treated as complicity. Doing nothing has been the ultimate social crime. Not because action helps, but because action reassures. We don't want the truth. We want the panic to stop. And that's why some people make the panic worse, because it makes them feel better and makes you feel desperate. But this is where philosophy finally earns its keep, of course. Spinoza said very calmly, centuries ago, that people believe they're free because they're conscious of their actions, but ignorant of the causes that compel them to act. So in other words, action feels like freedom. Yay! But action is driven by panic, not freedom. It's obedience. Doing nothing feels like moral failure because it strips away the illusion that you're choosing. You're no longer doing. You're no longer useful. You're no longer necessary. And that's terrifying if your identity has been built around being the one who steps in. By the time you reach this point in the series, a lot has already collapsed. Responsibility doesn't feel clean anymore. Helping feels contaminated. Control looks like anxiety dressed up in a suit. Competence no longer feels admirable, just exhausting. So what's left? Panic. Not random panic, structural panic. Panic is what remains when the system no longer knows how to use you, and you no longer know who you are without being used. And that's why it feels so personal. It isn't about the situation you stopped intervening in. It's about the sudden absence of a role. Who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Nothing. And now the part nobody likes admitting. Most people go back. Not because they're weak, not because they don't understand, but because panic is unbearable. Re-engaging restores identity. Re-engaging restores relief. Re-engaging restores meaning and insight. Real insight doesn't save you here. In fact, it can often make it worse. Because now you can see the mechanism and you still feel compelled to obey it. That's humbling in the most unpleasant way possible. Here I could talk about what it feels like when you don't intervene, when you don't interfere. But that's my experience and it won't help you. So let this land cleanly. Doing nothing feels irresponsible because responsibility has been regulating you. Panic isn't telling you to act because action is right. It's telling you to act because action is familiar. It's the structure. It's the conditioning that you've grown up with. You've learned, you've become, and you're part of that machine now. So until that panic is no longer automatically obeyed, nothing changes. Not because you lack courage or understanding, but because the understanding does not interrupt necessity. And that's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. And if you're feeling unsettled now, good. That means, for once, nothing rushed in to shut it down. And that's the most educational moment of all. Thank you.